whoever or whatever he is. Belief in the Antichrist and end times prophecy is cresting once again.
There's something in the air that people are fascinated with apocalyptic events and with a sense that real evil is rising, and this clash between good and evil may be reaching a cataclysmic moment.
Though he has always been known and feared in apocalyptic circles, the mass media has given the Antichrist unprecedented renown.
Every generation has thought they were the last generation. And so the difference is, in this generation, we have global television networks, and we have global distribution of novels that promote those ideas. So now, when we have an idea, we, especially Christians in America, can distribute those ideas worldwide instantly.
Indeed, the Antichrist made one of his biggest incursions into the mainstream with the publication in 1970 of a slim volume that popularized a fundamentalist and evangelical version of the end of the world.
Probably the individual who most needs to be singled out is Hal Lindsey. His epical, The Late Great Planet Earth, first published in 1970, has gone through edition after edition. I think this text, more than any other, has popularized a fairly common set of expectations and fears related to the notion of the Antichrist.
He's going to be attractive, he's going to be brilliant, he's going to have supernatural intelligence and supernatural powers. He will be one of the first in history to truly be a world leader. I mean, control the world.
Blessed are the peacemakers, the Bible famously says, but Lindsey helped popularize the notion that peacemaking will be the ultimate cover of the Antichrist.
It's by bringing what appears to be peace that he brings them all under his spell.
Christian writers Jerry Jenkins and Tim LaHaye took up Hal Lindsey's mantle with a vengeance. They've written a series of novels about the coming of the Antichrist that has sold an astounding 62 million copies since 1995.
It's the best-selling adult fiction series ever. And here we are, evangelical writers writing for a Christian publisher with an overtly evangelical story.
Although presented as fiction, the core material in the Left Behind series has become a realistic portrait for many Christians of both the second coming of Christ and the reign of his nemesis, the Antichrist.
In the Left Behind series, the Antichrist will be the head of the United Nations, a popular, peace-promising, charismatic leader from Romania who gets control of the United Nations and then moves it to the New Babylon in Iraq, where he begins to oversee a new world order.
Fictional specifics like the UN and Romania aside, the Left Behind series is in sync with a widely shared view of the Antichrist and his mission.
He's going to use all the modern speak. We love everybody, everybody's good, everybody's okay, let's all join together and be one. And the average man and woman are going to look at him and say, this guy is a great guy.
Antichrist would actually bring about a peace treaty in the Middle East, and the Jews would rejoice. They would rebuild their temple in Jerusalem and experience a new revival of Jewish hegemony and security and peace in the Middle East.
At that point, according to the dispensationalist plotline, exactly 3.5 years into his reign, the Antichrist will bare his fangs.
He doesn't try to pretend to be a nice guy anymore. He just rules the world with an iron fist.
He would enter the new temple in Jerusalem, declare himself to be God, and demand worship, and put to death all those who refuse to acknowledge him. Receive his mark, the mark of the beast, on their forehead or hands. And he lets go a horrible Holocaust against them. What modern dispensationalists say would be the worst persecution in the history of the Jewish people.
Jesus, when he returns, he comes as a rescue operation, because if he didn't come at the moment he's going to come, there'd be no one left alive.
So it's at the second coming of Christ, at the end of this tribulation, that Antichrist is defeated, his forces are defeated, the surviving Jews receive Jesus as their Messiah finally, and Jesus sets up David's throne in Jerusalem.
Not surprisingly, this elaborate scenario isn't for everyone.
It's a frankly supernatural worldview, so that rather than try to understand our own involvement in events or the ambiguities of life, it's all understood in absolute good versus evil terms.
But if the apocalyptic texts aren't literal prophecy, what meaningful messages can they continue to convey?
I think it also does answer to something very deep in the human condition, which is the attempt to make sense out of history and to find ourselves on the side of good in the midst of so much conflict.
There is a whole dimension within ourselves, often that we're not even aware of. A shadow side that is filled with anger and revenge and all sorts of dark motives that we are often loath to acknowledge. And I think the invitation is always present to ask the question, what is the Antichrist within myself? What is the evil within?
Determining whether the Antichrist is physically real, some kind of metaphysical energy, or entirely delusional, may ultimately be beyond our knowing. But what we can grasp is that the Antichrist looms ever larger on our horizon, his footfalls growing closer with each passing decade. The Antichrist has topped most wanted lists for the last 2 millennia. Prophecy believers have never stopped hunting for this figure, Christ's evil opponent, Satan's human representative on earth during the end times. He is both dreaded and, oddly enough, welcome.
There's hope in the figure of the Antichrist as well, because it signals the end of the world, which signals a reunion with Jesus Christ and a perfected humanity.
If you read the New Testament literally, like the conservative fundamentalist Christians would, the order will be the Antichrist will arise and have a 7-year reign. Christ will return and defeat the Antichrist and then initiate 1,000 years of godliness on the earth.
Prophecy believers fear that the tribulation, the Antichrist's 7-year reign on earth, will culminate in a period of unspeakable punishment for humankind.
A great war will erupt that will bring the end, that will cause millions to perish. Worse, much worse than the Second World War that killed millions. This will kill millions more.
In a very short time, half the population of the earth is killed.
So it's no wonder that some Christians have been tracking this demonic figure across history. Believers have constructed his profile using clues scattered throughout the Bible, but found primarily in the Old Testament book of Daniel and the New Testament book of Revelation.
This horn had eyes like